Well, the weekend has begun, and it's going to be a very exciting episode for all of you. So, today, as you know, we already begun the annual Tag Team Round Robin Tournament by Stardom, Goddesses of Stardom Tag League. So, we already reviewed day one. Now we get to review day two. So, we're going to see who, in fact, will get the first 2 points or who will be advancing more by getting more points. So stay tuned more for that. And then of course we move on with New Japan Road. This one has a very interesting double main event. The first one is of course the Never Openweight 6-man tag team titles. As you all know, the House of Losers, Evil, Kanemaru, and Dick are in fact trying to reclaim belts that they believe they earned it. But we all know these dirtbags like to cheat their way through by using unnecessary tactics, including weapons. But the real question is, will Wato, Yo, and Yano fall victims to them, or they will come, of course, victorious? We'll just have to wait and see what happens after that. And then, of course, the main event features Tanahashi. As you know, we're getting closer and closer to his retirement in Wrestle Kingdom. He faces against Yuto Ice. This is going to be a very interesting match to enjoy. And then, of course, finally, we have AEW Collision. As you know, we're only days away from Blood and Guts. We only have several matches, of course, for the Blood and Guts advantages. Of course, we're going to see who will be the ones getting the advantages. Will it be, of course, this one team or the other? So stay tuned for that. And of course, as always, we'll wrap up our episode as usual with some news updates to give you guys updates on what's been happening in the world of wrestling, such as what events the promotions are throwing out, who's booked, what matches are set, including developments that are happening in the world of wrestling as we speak. So let's get ready for another episode of Deleted Wrestle Zone.
Are you ready? Get up, get up! 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 Get up, get up!
Hey everyone, welcome to Deleted Wrestle Zone, all things that is pro wrestling with AEW, NXT, New Japan Pro Wrestling, TNA, the National Wrestling Alliance, various promotions, wrestlers, matches, and championships. I am your host, J-Rod here. So, if you are new to the channel, welcome. This is a channel we do a lot of pro wrestling reviews from various promotions, not only here in the United States, but also in Japan, Mexico, Canada, Europe, the UK, anywhere where pro wrestling is not as big, but it continues to grow. We also, of course, do discussion videos, talk about various topics such as the wrestlers themselves, the promotions, factions, storylines, whatever we want to talk about. We also, of course, do more news updates. If certain information was unable to be on this episode, we can either put it on the next one or on a separate video by itself. We also, of course, do real-time news updates to keep you guys on alert if something has happened in the world of wrestling that needs to be addressed ASAP. We also, of course, got the Nike Sayaka watch and various other cool wrestling content as well. So if you like what you see, please subscribe to us and click on that subscribe button. You'll be getting a lot of daily reviews and other cool wrestling content as well. But if you like this episode, please give us a like on the like button or a nice comment in the description down below. Now, enough with the jibber jabbers. Let's get started. So, let's begin, of course, with day 2 of Stardom's Tag League. Alright, as you all know, we just begun the annual Tag Team Round Robin Tournament Goddesses of Stardom Tag League. So we already reviewed, of course, day 1. However, there were still some teams that haven't had their matches yet, but we will see if they will prevail to get the first 2 official matches. And there are those, of course, who already got the first matches, but the real question is, will they advance more? That's something we will discuss throughout the entirety, of course, of the episode. And of course, we do have some non-tournament matches, so stay focused on that, people. Now, our first match goes into the Blue Goddesses block. We have, of course, our current New Blood Tag Team Champions, Sakurada of the Cosmic Angels, Aya Sakura and Sayaka Kurara. They take on, of course, Hanako and Megan Bayne. Now, as you all know, in day one, Megan Bayne made a surprise return to Stardom, and she teams up with Hanako. Now, remember, folks, 2023, Megan Bayne was, in fact, Goddess Tag League winner with Micah. The real question is, will she do the same thing again, but this time with a different tag team partner? Now, of course, we all know that there's been some history between both Aya Sakura and Hanako. That's always been the real thing that we have noticed within, of course, these two ladies. However, the real factor was Megan Bayne with her powerhouse. Unfortunately, she put Kurara in the running Liger Bomb, and just like that, 1, 2, 3, Hanako and Megan Bayne won their first 2 points. Of course, leaving Sakurada still in the bottom of 0. As you all know, they already lost their first match. That leaves them with 2 losses at this point. Now, we jump into a non-tournament match. We have, of course, Ram Kaicho making her return. She teams up with the members of Hate, more specifically with Rina and Raka. They take on, of course, Momo Kogo, Yuna Mizumori, and Mei Seira. Now, of course, it's a makeshift team that you probably would know. Now, when it comes to Hate, we all know the dirty tactics, how they run. They like to play games and play dirty tactics, try to soften up their opponents. However, in this match, you may have noticed that Ram Kaicho likes to use the ectoplasma, which is, of course, that white powder she tosses in people's faces. And unfortunately, the one person who suffered victim of that cruelty was none other than Momo Kogo. And because of that, Rina was able to apply the Pink Devil, which is the Gory Bomb special, onto Momo Kogo. And just like that, 1, 2, 3, it was over. Ram Kaicho and the members of Hate won the victory. Now, our next 2 matches are part of the Red Goddesses block. First team, we have, of course, Miku Kane and Sari taking on EXV members Rian and Waka Tsukiyama. Now, as you all know, these two teams ended up at the bottom of the barrel with just 0 points since the begun. Of course, Sari and Miku Kane lost their first match against Mei Seira and Yuna Mizumori. As for Rian and Waka, forgot who they lost to. But yes, they never had. This is their first match. My bad. But yes, but however, of course, much of you notice this is something that Yuna Mizumori mentioned, that she allowed Sari to allow Miku Kane to pick up some of the work while she stands by. Well, Sari is the kind of teacher who would love to see the wrestler succeed much as possible, and that's exactly what she did, because Miku Kane applied a German suplex on Rian, and just like that, she and Sari picked up their first 2 points. And as for Waka and Rian, well, since this is the first day, they ended up at 0. Now, our next match, continuing more with the Red Goddesses block, we have DLM, better known as Osita, and Tail Tiet Leko, the luchadores. As you know, these ladies replaced Koguma and Azuki. They're actually them behind the mask. Shh. So anyway, they face, of course, Mi Vida Loca, consistent of Akira Kurigani and Bozilla. Now, of course, many of you would have assumed that somehow Bozilla and Akira Kurigani would have picked up a fantastic win. But unfortunately, as you know, somehow DML were able to survive the monster Bozilla no matter what. They took her out until, of course, Kurigani ended up in a sleeper hold by Osita, and just like that, she tapped out completely, leaving, of course, DLM with just their first 2 points, leaving Mi Vida Loca with just 0, still at the bottom. So, really sucks right there. Now, our next match, well, this is a non-tournament match. We have Kyoku Furuzawa teaming up with, of course, the members of God's Eye, consistent of what they're known as Riara Tokyo Towers, Lady C and Ami Suri. They take on the members of Hate, more specifically Konami, Natsuko Tora, and Saya Kamitani, all champions. So, of course, we all know the type of work that the Hate likes to do. They like to use unnecessary tactics by using their opponents, soften them up outside the ring by tossing them through chairs, using weapons, and of course, using their seconds to do their dirty works for them. Well, that did not do any good for them. Now, many of you would have assumed in some capacity, since Furusawa is still the rookie, she would have been taking the fall. Well, unfortunately, that wasn't the case because Ami Suri walked away with the win when she applied, of course, the Thunderbolt onto Konami, and just like that, 1, 2, 3, it was over. However, many of you know this, Konami is a double champion. She is the current 1/3 of the artist champions with Rina and of course Fukigen Death. However, she's also the white belt champion. So it doesn't take a genius to realize that Ami Sori has cashed in her opportunity. Since she pinned Konami, that means that she wants to challenge for the white belt, and that's exactly what she did in the post match. I'm pretty sure she issued the challenge since she pinned her. And I'm sure Konami is going to let that happen, but we'll see what happens down the road. Now, our next two matches, in fact, is of course the Blue Goddesses block. We have stars consistent of Bea Priestley and Saida. They take on God's Eye members Saki Kashima and Shuri. Now, however, as you know, both these teams were successful in day one, receiving the first 2 points. But the real question we ask ourselves when it comes to this, who's going to advance further? Now, of course, we have seen somehow, we know that Kashima is determined to win the tournament because her biggest goal and ambition is to win the tag league, and of course the titles with Shuri. That's her ultimate goal with her. You know, ever since joining God's Eye, she and Shuri have become close no matter what. But of course, seeing Bea Priestley and Saida is a different factor. However, they have been successful so far, and that's a very good thing. But however, in the end, it was Ida who picked up the win on Kashima. Somehow she was able to divert Kashima's usual shenanigans that she normally does. And just like that, 1, 2, 3, Stars picked up the win with their next 2 points, totaling at 4, making them undefeated as we speak. And as for, of course, God's Eye, they ended up with just 2. Now we continue with more with the block. We have the other members of Mi Vida Loca, Rina Yamashita and Zu Suzuki. They take on the members of Neo Genesis, or as we know them during their time in Queen's Quest, they calling themselves O2 Line, consisting of Miyu Amasaki and Nozumi. Now, of course, it's no secret that Zuzu, as you know, has some history with both these ladies, a former member of Neo Genesis. But, however, I'm sure Azumi would have loved nothing more to get even with Zuzu for her betrayal. And that's exactly what she did when she applied the Azumi Sushi on her. And just like that, 1, 2, 3, it was over. They picked up the win, giving themselves their first 2 points, leaving, of course, Mi Vida Loca with just 0. So both teams in Mi Vida Loca ended up in 0. Now, our main event, we jump in with the Red Goddesses block. We have the members of God's Eye, consistent of Rane Yagami and Hina. They take on, of course, Cosmic Angel, Sayuri Anu, and Natsupoi. As you all know, they're former tag champions. And of course, they're one of the few teams that I would like to see win. And of course, this was not an easy task for them, and not to mention. But in the end, of course, it was Sayuri Anu that picked up the win with a German suplex on Yagami. And just like that, 1, 2, 3, it was over. Cosmic Angels got 4 points, so that means they are currently undefeated as we speak. But we'll see how things will progress. Now, keep in mind, we only have just 2 teams as we speak, in both the blue and the red are undefeated. So anything could change from here on out. But as for right now, we'll end things here with Stardom, and I'm sure there'll be more coming up soon with them. Let's move on with New Japan Pro Wrestling. Alright, New Japan Pro Wrestling with New Japan Road in Anjo. Many of you may recognize that area. That's some people like to call the hometown of Tam Nakano. This was at the Tosho Arena in Anjo at Anjo Aichi, Japan. We opened up, of course, with Young Lions, as always. We have Tatsuya Matsumoto taking on Katsuya Murashima. Now, obviously, when it comes to the Young Lions, we often see they end up either in a tie or one will pick up the answer. However, in this case, if you stay close more with the Young Lions, you can tell who has the better experience. As you all know, Katsuya Murashima has the better experience in this match. We have seen what great capability can do. He was able to pick up the win when he applied a Boston Crab onto Matsumoto, and just like that, Matsumoto had no choice but to tap out. Now we got more with the Young Lions. However, one Young Lion teams up with a veteran. Zayn J teams up with Shomo Kato. They take on against Masatora Yasuda, and of course he teams up with the Holy Emperor Taichi. So it's interesting to see Taichi. You know, it's been a while since we've seen him, but it doesn't take a genius to know that Taichi was going to pick up the win since he is the veteran in this match, and of course the much well experienced out of everybody in this ring. And that's exactly what happened. He was able to pick up the win when he applied the Uranagi onto Zayn J, and just like that, 1, 2, 3, it was over. Now our next match, we have Tiger Mask, Tomoaki Hamna, and Bolton Oleg. They take on the United Empire, Jacob Austin Young, Cal Newman, and the Great O'Khan. As you all know, the United Empire are determined to get themselves back on track because things have not been looking well for them. But we've recently been seeing Cal Newman with a brand new attitude, where he's now attacking the wrestlers without giving a damn or a care in the world what he does. And that's exactly what he's been doing. However, it was in fact Newman that picked up the win with the Princess Curse onto Hamna. And just like that, 1, 2, 3, done. Now, our next match, we had an interesting combination. The members of the Bullet Club War Dogs, consistent of Geto and Taiji Shimori, they team up with Shingo Tagaki to take on, of course, the House of Losers, more specifically Yujiro Takahashi, and of course our current IWGP Junior Heavyweight Tag Team Champions, Sho and Doiki, or as we like to call them, Tweedledee and Tweedledum. And don't forget, guys, Doiki is the current IWGP Junior Heavyweight Champion. So of course it's obvious that this was going to happen. However, we know that these losers like to play dirty tricks, like to, of course, soften the wrestlers up. However, someone knows how to play dirty games too, and that is, of course, Ishimori, because unfortunately Sho ended up getting his gonads kicked out of him by Ishimori, and then of course the bloody cross onto him, and just like that, 1, 2, 3, it's over. However, Ishimori, as you probably may not know, he has an urge to get what he wants, and that is the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship. And of course, I'm sure Doiki was not going to let that happen, but unfortunately, seems that someone also wants that belt off of him, and that is, of course, the person that Doiki defeated it for, and that is, of course, El Desperado. So most likely we will see a three-way match, and that's something I'm sure Doiki cannot run from, because, of course, as you know, when it comes to the House of Losers, whenever they win championships, they don't want to defend them, but they have no choice because the president of New Japan says you have to. You can't run from it. Now, our next match, we have Ryusuke Taguchi teaming up with Yuya Uemura and Shota Umino. They take on, of course, the combination of Daiki Nagai, Oscar, and Yota Tsuji. However, of course, there was a real fun moment in this match where, of course, Taguchi, if you guys have ever known, he's the kind of person who likes to have way too much fun, but without realizing that he's going to cause a problem. However, Shota Umino and Yuya Uemura just stepped away, like say, oh no, we're not tagging, you're going to deal with Oscar. And of course, they're trying to get the fans to get him all fired up for his match, but things didn't go well for that. But unfortunately, it was Yuya Uemura that picked up the win when he applied a submission on Daiki Nagai, and Nagai had no choice but to tap out. So just like that. However, in the post-match, Oscar Lobe, he has the sights on Taguchi, like he wants to murder him, and of course he's been chasing him. Taguchi's like running back and forth, not to get caught in the crossfire, but luckily he didn't. So that's pretty much okay for what we know from there. Now, Our next match, we have TMDK, consisting of Harley Jackson, Rohi Oiwa, and Zack Sabre Jr. They take on the combined forces of El Desperado and, of course, World Tag League winners and IWGP former tag team champions Bishamon, Yoshihashi, and Hiroki Goto. And it's great to see these Bishamon teaming up with El Desperado, and that's something we definitely need. And of course, there was going to be some great moments. However, in the end, we did see, of course, Yoshihashi and Goto applied Shoto onto Harley Jackson, and it was Goto who picked up the win by pinfall. 1, 2, 3. It was over. Now, our next match is our only championship match. It's the Never Openweight 6-man tag team titles. As you know, the House of Losers consisted of Evil, Dick Togo, and Kanemaru. Now, Evil has claimed that that the current champions, Yo, Wado, and Yano, didn't deserve to become champions. Now, of course, we know that they played dirty tricks, and that's pretty much what they did. Not to mention, they used the whiskey mist onto them. And then, of course, the greatest thing we ever seen, Aaron Wolf showed up because he saw Evil was about to whack Wado with the chair. He covered himself and took the bullet from him. However, of course, Yo spit whiskey mist onto Kanemaru to give him a taste of his own medicine. And just like that, Dick Togo ended up in the wrong side of a submission by Wato. And just like that, the idiot actually had to tap out. Thank God. But thank God that the House of Losers did not obtain the Never Openweight 6-man tag team titles. However, I'm sure Evil is not happy with the fact that Aaron Wolf once again stick his nose in his business. Well, who cares? Because he's not going to let people like Evil to get away with whatever shenanigans they apply. But people are going to say, you can be my hero. Just like that. Now, our main event. As you all know, Tanahashi is on the verge of retiring on January 4th. We're getting closer and closer to the due date. But he has to go through the reins towards a young and much dangerous wrestler, Yuto Ice. As you know, Yuto Ice, many wrestlers of his generation will love nothing more to defeat the Ace. And that's exactly. He was attempting to try to put him down as much as possible. But however, things didn't go well for him because it only took three high five flows for Tanahashi to put away Yuto Ice, and just like that, 1, 2, 3, it was over. However, Tanahashi put out a promo, and then he started going air guitar until, of course, you heard that infamous coin toss. That's right, folks. Kazuchika Okada made his return, and now it's been revealed who is going to be his final opponent on January 4th, 2026 at Wrestle Kingdom in the Tokyo Dome. Now, it's no secret, as you all know, there's been some history between both Tanahashi and Okada. So, looks like the old rivalry is back. But what's interesting, Geto showed up by Okada's side, like bringing back the old moments that we remembered, where Geto was the guy who hyped up Okada to win, always stood by his side. And I think this is one of those moments, like one last moment to see that. So, we'll see how things will progress. I'm sure there's going to be a press conference over this. But, yeah. So, we're officially done with New Japan. Let's move on with our last and final review, and that is, of course, AEW Collision. Alright, final review, AEW Collision. We opened up with FTR, Dax Harwood, and Cash Wheeler, along with that weasel Stokely Hathaway. They take on the Bang Bang Gang. That's right, Austin Gunn and Juice Robinson. Now, when it comes to FTR, you all know that Stokely Hathaway will love nothing more to interfere. However, as you know, the Bang Bang Gang still has to deal with their rivals, none other than Brian Keith and Big Bill. However, those two guys were in the back watching this. So, but the thing that changed the whole game in this game, as you know, Stokely Hathaway had to remove some mask. Apparently, it turned out to be Bandito and Gravity. As you know, these two brothers have their problems. What Stokely Hathaway did, try to lock Bandito up because they tried to, let's just say, make their grandma very uncomfortable. And Stokely Hathaway had it coming until Jet Speed helped them out, and not to mention Bandito super kicked that weasel. And of course, uh, Cash Wheeler tried to stop them but failed miserably. But Juice Robinson had the bigger win because he applied the Juices Loose onto that Dax, and just like that, 1, 2, 3. And just like that, it was over. However, what does this mean for FTR? Because in a way, we know they're aiming for the AEW World Tag Team belts. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens. Now, Renee Paquette had a talk with Kyle Fletcher over the regarding about this whole thing with the stipulation going on. As you know, Don Callis said that if Mark Briscoe loses, he has to leave the conglomeration and join the Don Callis family. However, apparently there was supposed to be a match coming up where Kyle Fletcher teams up with Takeshita, but unfortunately he won't be able to, so Okada decided to get involved. Now, we all know that recently there's been some disdain between both Okada and Takeshita. So you can say it's petty or whatever, but we'll see how that rolls up. Now, Kyle Fletcher faces off, of course, putting his TNT Championship on the line against Ace Austin. I thought the match was fantastic. I mean, Ace Austin, I love his capability, what he can do in the ring. You know, he's a very unique wrestler. He stood toe-to-toe with someone who's been, of course, moving up the ladder. But unfortunately, things didn't go well for Ace that much because apparently he ended up on the wrong side of the top corner of the brainbuster, and just like that, 1, 2, 3, it was done. So I have to say he put up a hell of an effort. Now, as you know, Chris Statlander is set to defend the AEW Women's World Championship at Full Gear against Mercedes Moné. So she made a drastic message towards her, as you know, because we know Mercedes Moné, what's her end game. She wants to claim this belt and put it in her collection. That's something she's been determined to do for the last couple of months. Well, we'll see how things will roll from there. Now, Death Riders, this past Wednesday, when they secure a win, they decided to, of course, they ran into Don Callis and Kyle Fletcher. Now, of course, you know, Don Callis wants Mark Briscoe to join him. But of course, Pac tells him, we don't give a rat's ass about Mark Briscoe. He can piss off for all we care. And of course, Don Callis tried to offer his services. But Moxley looks at him, does it look like we need a favor from you? He was showing him, don't get involved in our business or else. And of course, Don had that look on his face like probably he wished he could have just minded his own business. So, yeah, that's pretty much what happened. Now, our next match, we have, of course, Ty J, Anna J, and Ty Mello teaming up. Once again, they take on High-End and Maya World. Now, obviously, you can tell this match was going to fall in favors with Ty J because, as you know, they're involved in the AEW Women's World Tag Team Tournament involving themselves. So they pick up the win with the combination of the Gory Bomb by, of course, Anna J onto High-End, and then, of course, Ty Mello applied a knee strike when she was coming down, and just like that, 1, 2, 3, done. Now, we did see a bit of an interview with Athena. Of course, she's not happy with the result of what happened this past Wednesday, losing the tournament for the AEW Women's World Tag Team belts with Mercedes. So it looks like she has a problem with Billy, with Harley Cameron, and all that. However, the one thing she cares about is hoping since she's involved in the women's Blood and Guts match on Tuesday, that somehow Tekla wins the match and they get the advantage. That's something that, of course, we're definitely going to see one way or the other. Now, we jump into that particular match. We have Sky Blue versus Jamie Hayter. Now, this is, of course, one of two matches involving that. But, of course, it's no secret that Sky Blue and Jamie Hayter, they had their history, knowing too well that the Triangle of Madness have been dealing with Jamie Hayter for this long. However, Jamie Hayter was able to survive the onslaught from Sky Blue until she applied the Haterade, and just like that, 1, 2, 3, it now one-on-one. However, of course, Julia Hart and Tekla showed up and attacked um, Jamie Hayter, but unfortunately, of course, we did see Willow and Harley Cameron made the save just like that. And then we jump into the match between Tekla and Harley Cameron, and you can tell in this match that everybody was behind Harley Cameron because they want her to win, because her team needs the advantage. But unfortunately, it didn't go according to plan because Tekla applied a spear, and just like that, Tekla's team, more specifically herself, the rest of the Triangle of Madness, along with, of course, Megan Bayne, Athena, and Mercedes Moné, they get the advantage on that. So that's pretty much what happened. Now, Lex and Nier conducted an interview with Jet Speed. As you probably know, they did not win. They not involved in a tag team tournament or whatever it's going on. But however, of course, they have their sights set on FTR no matter what. But they did put themselves in the hat for the AEW National Championship for the Gauntlet match that's happening in Full Gear. And they're not afraid to face each other. That's something that they made perfectly clear. So we know what's going to happen. Now, once again, as you know, Max Bourne and Max Caster, well, let's just say that they're not going to reunite as the Acclaim. But Lex and Nier decided to bring out like how things are, that if they continue to team up, then their revenue, whatever, rise up, and they're like, oh hell no, we're not going to talk about that. So just like that. Now our next match is the final of the Gut, Blood, and Guts men's match, the Advantage. We have Jon Moxley and of course Roderick Strong. Now we all know that of course when it comes to Jon Moxley, he'll do whatever it takes to win. Not to mention that squeeze right there, Marina Shafir gets involved. We even saw that idiot Pac gets involved too. However, something happened that no one expected. Jon Moxley lost the match by count out because someone held his foot out, and just like that, Roderick Strong won. And then, of course, Pac got electrocuted with a taser by none other than Darby, and then, of course, Wheeler Yuta was running like the coward that he is until he got taken out. And I'm sure this is the last thing that Jon Moxley wanted. He did not anticipate this was going to happen. Well, it is what it is. Basically, Darby Allin, the conglomeration, they all got the advantage. So that's going to be good right there. So that's how things end with AEW Collision. And unfortunately, we're done. Let's move on with our last and final thing, news updates. Alright, so welcome to our news updates. So we only have one update for upcoming events. Now, as you know, on November 21st, we have the collaboration between Wrestling Revolver and Arrival Wrestling with their upcoming event known as Wrestle Combat. And they just announced a championship match, a Revolver title. The Revolver World Championship will be defended. Myron Reed defends his belt against Jordan Oliver. Now, it's no secret these two guys know each other. Many of you guys know this. These two formed a faction in Major League Wrestling known as the Injustice. So it's kind of interesting to see these two guys face off. So that's pretty much it for upcoming events. Now for some developments. Many of you know this, that Zayda Steel, who was part of the WWE ID Prospect, well, her contract expired last month. However, Fightful Select reports that AEW made contact with her right after her contract expired. Now, it's still unclear what they talked about. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if Tony Khan gave her an offer that I'm not sure if she would definitely accepts, but we'll just have to wait and see. Now, sad news here. Many of you know Saraya, or as a WWE wrestler known as Paige. Her father, many of you know him as Ricky Knight. He is currently hospitalized. Now, it's still unclear what really happened. I just hope he's doing okay, and thoughts and prayers are for the rest of the Knight family. Now, Many of you may know this a long time ago that Dixie Carter, who was the majority owner of TNA back in the day, there's been talk about certain people that they were never, how do I say, like Dixie Carter on how she operated. People often say, even Jeff Jarrett, who had their deals with her in the past, said that she has no idea what she was doing. Well, turns out another person kind of gave her her views on what's been going with Dixie Carter. According to that person was Velvet Sky. She said this, that she was not well received at all, and of course, not she was not well received by the talent, from what she says. And she said that would talk down to people. Basically, she's trying to bring reason, but the real question is, I mean, people often say Dixie Carter made a damn mistake of bringing Vince Russo. Many of you know Vince Russo, who's been declared as the man responsible for the fall of WCW. So, yeah, I can understand that. Look, if you're going to run a wrestling promotion, don't do it if you don't know what the hell you're doing. But yes, that's exactly what happened. Now, for our last development here, and many of you may know this guy. He's a guitarist for Downstraight. Justin, hold on, let me pull it up. Yeah, Justin Call. Apparently, he was given thrown a curveball when it comes to creating the music for Isla Dawn. Many of you know that Isla Dawn has recently been appearing in ROH, and this is what he said. Our expectations were to do something darker. That's what we were expecting to do, but in our initial conversation, she just said, I love, and I think I was like Radio Disney pop rock. She sent me a couple of samples. I was like, whoa, this is not what I thought we were going with this. But it was nice to be thrown a curveball and get to do something challenging and new. I think she was playing it close to the vest, so we just got the music reference, not the whole of the character stuff. Yeah, so I mean, it's interesting because here's the thing, guys. When it comes to wrestlers asking for their own entrance theme, you want to pay attention what you're gonna do. I remember when AJ Styles, of course, when he first went to WWE, his theme was completely different from what we were used to in TNA, and he said it was something more between a bit of the rap style with, of course, country soul or whatever, that sort of thing he mentioned. I'm not 100% sure, but yes. But I'm glad that, of course, Justin Call said that they were throwing a curveball to try something new. I mean, she would have gone darker, but she wanted to go to this direction. And I have to say, every musician like myself, you have to take a challenge, and it's not easy, but it's fun, because you get to try to do something different that's not even in your comfort zone. So if you guys are musicians, you know what I'm talking about. So that's pretty much it what we have. So that's all for our news updates. Let's call it a day. Well, I hope everybody enjoys this episode. Coming up, well, as you probably know, we will continue with day 3 of Stardom's Goddesses Tag League. I'm not sure if I'll be able to see it, but if I do, then I'll make that as a priority. Now, I'm still behind on some of the Yoshi Wrestling events for months. Been right now procrastinating because right now things have not been going according to plan for me, but I'll do my best as much as possible. So bear with me, people, and then we'll see how it goes. But I think that's pretty much it. So we'll see what happens on our next episode. But until then, I will see you guys in the next DWZ time, same DWZ channel. I must bid all of you adieu. So, goodbye. And have a nice day.